Hey everyone, Internet PCS book reader here. Today I want to talk about Norwegian Wood by Haruki Murakami. First thing first, as usual, some trigger warning, mostly for unalive activity. The book opens up with a 37-year-old man pained by his memory over the song Norwegian Wood by the Beatles. He then reminisces about his past in a quote that sets the tone of the book perfectly. I straighten up and look out the plane window at the dark clouds hanging over the North Sea, thinking of what I had lost in the course of my life. Times gone forever. Friends who had died or disappeared. Feelings that I will never know again. The story itself is quite linear, like a lot of coming-of-age literature. Set in 1968, the main character, Taro Watanabe, went to college in Tokyo and lived in a dormitory. It's an okay dormitory that belongs to a weird extreme right guy. This is the era in Japan when right-wing extremists are abandoned after all. But that's not the focus of our story. It is merely a background for our characters. Our story focuses mostly on Taro's relationship with Naoko, a girl from his home village Kobe, who Taro knows since high school after they were introduced by his friend Kazuki. But Kazuki took his own life in high school, and that memory and their connection haunts their life. Those were strange days. Now that I look back at them, in the midst of life, everything revolved around them. Taro and Naoko grew apart until they met again in Tokyo. They often met and talked about Taro's dormitory friend who's a bit on the spectrum, I think, whose nickname is Tom Trooper. Until one day when Naoko is at her weakest moment, in a misguided attempt to calm her, they slept together. Naoko then moved out of Tokyo. After this, Taro started to lose the people he cared about, not just Naoko, but even Stormtrooper, who he has somewhat considered as friend, is just gone. And he got more disappointed in himself and more disillusioned with the world. To think that these idiots had been the ones screaming for the dismantling of the university. What a joke. Like the wind changed direction a little bit and their cries turned to whisper. Hey Kizuki, I thought. You're not missing a damn thing. This world is a piece of shit. The assholes are earning their college credits and helping to create a society in their own disgusting image. But he met Midori, a girl in his class who took interest in his aloof appearance, I guess. A very different girl from Naoko, more open and more direct in living. The story will follow Taro as he struggles to become more mature in his own way, his closeness to Midori as Naoko develops a worsening mental illness. These are the times that will become a memory that is a big part of who he is. There is no way around it. My memory is growing ever more distant from the spot where Naoko used to stand, ever more distant from the spot where my old self used to stand. And nothing but scenery, that view of meadow in October, returns again and again to me like a symbolic scene in a movie. Each time it appears, it delivers a kick to some part of my mind. Wake up, it says. I am still here. Wake up and think about it. Think about why I'm still here. The kicking never hurts me. There's no pain at all. Just a hollow sound that echoes with each kick. And even that is bound to fade one day. At the Hamburg airport though, the kicks were longer and harder than usual. Which is why I am writing this book. To think, to understand. It just happens to be the way I'm made. I have to write things down to feel I truly comprehend them. The story really captures youth at the period of transition of their life, from years of having their path figured out for them to an endless possibilities with various pitfalls they have to learn to navigate themselves. Add this with the background period where students in Japan at the time wanted to be involved in the revolution, mostly just because it is so different than the confusing mess that is their future, not because they wanted to make some change, but still. And while it is a romance and a coming-of-age story, the theme that drives the story is mostly death, or more specifically, loss and grief. How the characters cope and process their feeling of loss in such a young age. Taro and Naoko lost Kazuki, Naoko lost her sister, Midori lost her parents. Every major characters in the book have experienced a loss in their life at such a young age, and as the book said, it became a major part of what shaped them as they grew up. That was not the opposite of life. It was already here, within my being. It has always been here, and no struggle would permit me to forget that. I have read most of Haruki Murakami's work, including his short stories and non-fiction like Underground. He's not the best character writer. His main male characters are always some of the most passive wooden plank ever, and his female characters are mostly just the most basic male perspective of a woman. This is not me speculating, by the way. He's admitted this on interview about his weakness in character writing, especially female character writing. Reading his books always feel like Haruki Murakami, mention breast speedrun world record. Haruki Murakami, no random sex scene, impossible level challenge. Even in this book, there are so much sex scene that at times it feels like a parody, which I understand can be a bit too much male gaze for some people, but at the same time, his writing style is always so captivating and compelling to read, and his dialogue are always interesting. Also, the character writing works better here compared to his other books because in the setting of this book at least, the characters are youth grasping at their own identity and so awkward with everything including love and sex. Memory is a funny thing. When I was in the scene, I hardly paid it any mind, and never stopped to think of it as something that would make a lasting impression. Certainly never imagined that 18 years later, I would recall it in such detail. I didn't give a damn about the scenery that day. I was thinking about myself. I was thinking about the beautiful girl walking next to me. I was thinking about the two of us together, and then about myself again. It was the age, that time of life when every sight, every feeling, every thought came back like a boomerang to me. And worse, I was in love. Love with complication. Scenery was the last thing on my mind. And speaking of youth, the story also really captures the vibe of being young while having to handle loss in ways that are more than just loss of life. Some friends you lost contact with, some you cut off from your life eventually. It also portrays the idea of love for the inexperienced really well. The awkwardness on how they expect and handle it, how sometimes despite all your strongest feelings to someone, it can cool down and you move on if they are not there for you. It even captures the easiness that you can connect with someone when you're young. You can make connection with others just through music and books that you like. Norwegian Wood is a very flawed storytelling, and it didn't have that magical realism that Haruki Murakami are known for. But it is a really great story, and I think are worth experiencing despite its flaws. That's about it.